Welcome back to another episode of Reusable Space Program. You find us launching up the second parts or third parts of our Gemini 2 craft. This episode, we're going to send our fuel tank down to the moon and we're going to continue to prepare to mine Minmus. So, any suggestions? Get on with it. Otherwise, let's get going. Right, so you find us in orbit with the craft that we've just launched, and you will have seen there that there is some, well, it looks like engines inside it. Well, that doesn't really add up, does it? Well, yeah, we're actually sending up individual engine clusters for our Gemini 2 craft. So the idea is that they will have separate engine parts that will actually attach to the craft. It gives us a bit of sort of variability, a bit of ability to change things and move things around if needed. But it does mean that we're about to do one of the weirdest dockings I've ever done, where a craft is docking to its own engines. So we bring our Zephyrus upper stage into sort of close proximity to the other Zephyrus upper stage. So the idea is this thing's going to basically try and we're going to park them as close together as possible. Now, I could have done this better, I'm going to be honest with you. We could have actually, got a robotic arm or something going on, but we haven't done that. So we're going to detach the Gemini sort of cores right now, so Gemini 2A and 2B. Gemini 1 will turn up, you'll see Gemini 1. It's very similar to this, but it's a less sort of, shall we say, Gemini version of Gemini. And the idea is that these are actually going to be used for, firstly, developing our Minmus sort of structure, but secondly, actually for hopefully interplanetary work. So we're going to use this structure, this design, but also these craft as much as possible interchangeably. So you'll see on the side of the craft there are what looks like little sort of elongated docking ports. Those, I believe, are from near future construction, and the idea is that we're going to try and dock these engines onto them. It doesn't matter which way round the first one goes on, but the second one obviously has to match. So you can see here I'm just trying to draw them in and dock them. And one of the problems I found was I ended up actually doing it properly manually instead of using the nav ball. You notice I didn't relocate the nav ball position because I should have actually set it to navigate by the docking port I was going to actually dock with. However, when I first did that, the RCS was not firing, and I couldn't figure out why until about halfway through this whole process. I realized that I'd set the RCS to fire for specific things. So the ones on the side were basically firing for fore and aft sort of translation, and then the top and bottom ones were going sort of it's fore and aft actually movement. And because of that, when you actually change the position of the docking port or the focus of the craft to a side-on docking port, it will not fire them. So be aware of that. Because you change the focus of a craft, it will actually change what things are defined as. So this took quite a while, and I've sped this up quite a lot, but it is a lot of just moving around, and it was just catching little things in orbit. It was actually horrendous. And in an odd way, the craft actually got more manageable when it had the first engine attached, because it actually had more RCS sort of reaction controls and things like that. And there we go, that's the first one pretty much docked together, and then we're just going to bring in the second ones like so, and this is just, there we go, doop-de-doo. So no, get in, there we go. Oh no, missed it, go on. And you can still see I'm still doing the manual thing there. So that was without really using a nav ball, which is horrible. So then we're going to rename these craft because they've got horrible names, reset the position of control, and then I basically pulled them towards each or together, because we want to just, there we go, rename that one as well. We want to actually bring them together at this point, because they're both going to go to the same destination, and it seems a bit logical just to get them near each other. Through that whole process, everything just drifted so far apart. In reality, in the real world, I could have just waited until the orbit had come around a full orbit, in however many minutes, hours. In Kerbin, because of the way that floating points work, sometimes these things never come back together. So it was a case of, let's just let's brute force it. We've got the fuel, we've got the energy. Let's just get these two craft together now, and then we'll just deal with whatever we need to deal with in the future. So we're just going to stick the two Gemini craft together, so they can then go and rendezvous with the mining unit that we sent up in the previous episode as well. And the idea is these are going to combine to take that mining unit down to Minmus. Now, the mining unit could go down with just one. There's enough power in these two things to go down together. But yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to it. So next step was to bring those upper stages back down through the atmosphere. So I'm actually going to show you these in parallel. You can actually see them just flying off there, down through the atmosphere. Whoop-de-doo, all the wonderfulness. Isn't it brilliant? This has become sort of second nature to us now. You'll see we're aiming pretty much for the water before the KSC. So we're trying to put them down near KSC, but you know, it's somewhere safe. Water's reasonably safe for these. So we're not too worried about what's going on. And you see the first one's actually just used all of its fuel to slow down. The second one, that took a bit of a more direct route, shall we say. The first one tumbling in the air because we used its fuel quite early on just to kill it. The second one, though, that actually comes down reasonably close to KSC. It gives us a good chunk of refund back, shall we say. And so they're just going to come down and they're going to land nice and easy, very simple. There we go, get the engines out. And as with all of these things, you know, firing the engine at the end, these craft do not need to fire the engine on landing. They actually have got enough parachutes to just come down naturally. I think they could probably come down almost fully fueled as well. So there we go, all the way down, popping down, final one's down, there we go. You get a little view of the planet back there just to see whereabouts it was coming down at, and just slowly down. Oh, a little bit of a thrust on one on there because I'd forgotten. You notice that I've forgotten to turn off the orientation control, because in the atmosphere they will actually, with parachutes, just tend to be sort of stable downwards, which is what you want. So turn off RCS, turn off orientation control, SAS, whatever you've got. Just let it float down. It's the easiest, safest way. Otherwise you end up flipping over like that did. So there we go, popping it down. And safe. Wonderful. Right. Next up, we've got to send up the Gemini surface tanker. So this is going up in a single launch stage of the Zephyrus 1. Just like we've sent up things in the past, we've actually taken off it to the second stage of this launch craft because we're going to replace it with the tanker. So the tanker is actually full. It's full of fuel right now. The idea is this thing's going to go to Minmus with our Gemini craft. Well, it's actually going to go on its own, but it's going to go about the same time because it's going to land near the mining rig and be able to be refueled, obviously, from the mining rig. So, going up into orbit nice and easy on the Zephyrus 1. Again, you can see it's got that odd nose now because it's got the tanker, surface tanker in there instead of its normal sort of second stage. But this is actually really good. This actually saves us. I could have actually just developed a bigger second stage, but it seemed a bit silly actually to do that. So there we go. Up it goes onto its single engine, and then we just release the tanker. And this tanker's actually got a long burn. Now you'll notice, unlike previous tankers, we've put the Mun tanker, for example, which has got 2 engines. This 4 engines. This has got 2 engines. It's more like the transport tankers. We could just use this as a transport tanker as well. We could actually upgrade all of our transport tankers to do this, but carrying the extra landing gear and stuff like that, plus, you know, having them to be built and cost money and stuff, I just decided we'd have 2 different sorts. I think it's nice to separate out the 2 different sections of this and keep them as they are. And so this is just going to bring itself into orbit. Once it's up in orbit, it will sort of prepare itself for transit to Minmus. It's not going to pair up with the mining rig though. It's actually going to go on its own. It has the fuel to go. You can see it's pretty much full of fuel. It's going to act as a little tanker in storage in orbit while we're setting up the Minmus base, because we want to actually sort of trial out, you know, how is this going to work for us. You can see it actually carries oxidizer even though it doesn't need to. Anyway. The daylight is now coming back to the Mun mining site, so it is about time that we land a few of the craft at the mining site. So we're going to land down, first of all, the fuel tank that we have in orbit. It's been detached for a while. We should have actually kept it on station at the end of last episode, but we didn't. We detached it. So we are pretty much empty of fuel at the station at the moment above the Mun. Mun Station 1 is pretty much empty of fuel, so this is a much needed little supply down at the bottom there. Going to allow us to stock up with fuel and oxidizer and everything. We can start bigger tanker trips once this is done. We're pretty much using the last dregs to get this down, and then we've got the Mun tanker to go down as well. So once those should have just, I think we've got enough fuel for probably 2 Mun tanker trips, if that, But once that's down, we'll get loads and loads of fuel back. So we're not too worried at the moment. There's loads of fuel to be had. So this thing is going to come down. We're going to come down a reasonable distance from the site because, again, big tanks coming down near our mining rig is probably not a great idea. What we didn't take into account was that this thing has wheels, so it can actually move itself. However, it is, number one, quite heavy because the orange tanks are quite heavy. But number two, it's on a hell of a slope. You can actually see there, look at that. It is, you were looking at like a 5-degree slope almost, or possibly more. Anyway, we take cargo 2. Cargo 2 is going to go back into orbit. It's got enough fuel to get into orbit and get back to the Moon Station 1 where it can have things done to it, because this thing is, it's probably going to be Cargo 2's last mission, we reckon. I do not foresee Cargo 2 doing many more missions before we retire it. It and Cargo 1 probably should have been retired on their last trip to Kerbin. However, you know, it's got a stay of execution because we want to do a bit of expansion on the base. So we've got that tank down there. We're going to send over the fuel truck because the fuel truck was actually going to go and drag it all the way to the base, in actual fact, because, you know, with all of our things being interchangeably designed, because it's one of the big things we had with the plan for this Moon base was the idea of interconnectivity, and this is something we're moving forward with the Minmus base, making it a bit more so. But what we're actually going to do is we're going to actually tow this thing, which I think is quite cool. Now, we don't have a tow bar, but what we do have is got that docking port on the back. And originally I did debate whether we were going to just attach this tank to our fuel base, and I actually think we probably will in future. We'll potentially dock it, and because it's actually a quicker fuel transfer mechanism, and then it only has to take its time transferring fuel to get the brakes on. Yeah, that's a big slope, and we need to get the traction going on this. We need to get the power to those engines. So there we go. Oof, that was a bit tight. So you'll see that we're just going along there, and this is nice and easy. It's quite cool, isn't it? It's interesting. We've got different sized wheels and everything, and it's just a case now of transporting this to the Moon base, and just, you know, a bit of care, a bit of attention. We're not going too fast. It's up a hill. We just, you know, pull it up there. You can see this has got radiators and stuff attached to it because we want to keep cooling on our mining system. Our mining system is getting a little hot at times, so I thought extra radiators are useful, aren't they? So we're just going to come along. We're just closing in, driving along, getting closer and closer to our mining rig. And then what was that? Well, we're okay, right? We're okay. That was a bit concerning. I think we must have hit a boulder. I keep forgetting that they've got whoa, oh, what on earth? Yes, so at that point I've paused the game. It seems we'd hit something and the orange tank had exploded. Reusability 0, I think. Let's see what happens next. Oh, onto our back. This is not good. This is, yeah. I don't know why the pilot is. Gwen, why are you? Oh, we managed to turn ourselves around, but you can see the remnants of that tank is a nightmare. But the other thing is, we get out and have a look. This is an electrically powered vehicle, and we just lost our solar panels, and we can't fix them. So this thing has got a limited amount of electricity as well, which means basically, although this tanker is still here, it ain't going to be a tanker anymore because it can't drive anywhere. Or if it can, we have to be very limited. It sort of limits the use that this thing has. Right. It's at this point that I start thinking, I need to get this thing back to the base somehow, because maybe I can fuel it with electricity. So maybe we can refuel it with electricity is the thought. But then we don't have the fuel tank that we needed. And if we've got a long range, yeah, you can see I'm looking now at the electricity meter in the top right, and it's going down. The electricity is going down. No matter what I do, it's going down. So if we have to travel a reasonable distance with this thing and refuel things and whatnot, this is ruined. So I have two things to achieve now. I have to get back to base before the electricity runs out. I've got to get electricity into it, and then I've got to fix the tanker. Well, I can't fix the tanker, but I needed a fuel storage tank, and well, this has got a fuel storage tank on it. So Gwen basically decides, yep, we're going to dock it. Now, the problem with that is that we no longer have a fuel truck. There is no fuel truck down on the planet, and Well, as you've seen, I tend not to land right next to my my bases. I tend to let the fuel truck do a lot of the transporting. So the question is, how on earth do we get fuel back into orbit? Because we don't have a fuel truck anymore that can do that. We could move the entire base. We could detach the fuel truck and hope that it doesn't run out of fuel. But yeah, this could be problematic. So the guys up on the on Moon Station 1, they're really struggling right now, because this could be the end of the program. We've got Kerbals trapped down there, and we cannot get them back potentially because we don't have the fuel. So Scott, Nakot come up with a plan. Their idea is they are going to risk everything, absolutely everything. They're going to take the Lunar tanker and they're going to try and land it pretty much on the base. It has to be close enough to allow fuel transfer. That means it's got to be, I think, within 30 meters or so, something like that. So this thing has to come down close, and I do not like this, because if I mess this up at all, we hit the base and we lose everything. Because this is a big craft. This is not a little tiny runabout. I could send a runabout down, that's dead easy, but I can't get fuel from the runabout. I cannot justify setting up another tanker unless we can prove that we can actually get fuel back out of there, because we've you know, this is no longer long-term sustainability here. So this is the challenge. How close can we come? Remember, I do not have mech jeb. I do not have anything like that. This thing has to come down close to the base. So we start to come down and we're short. We are far too short. So we fire the engines up a little bit and we just let ourselves hang. We know potentially with a little bit of hanging and a little bit of drifting, we can get close to that base. You can see we're drifting right now over the wreckage that was the fuel tank, all of the thermal components we needed, and we're just working it down. So now we're just going to bring it down ever so slowly, and you know, this is tight, this is tight, this is tight. This might be close enough. This may just about be, oh, and you can see there we literally had fumes on landing because we'd had to hold it for so long. We literally had fumes in the tanks. So can we get a cable to it? Yes, we go. So just, I think, literally within half a meter of being able to do it. So as Gwyn fills that up, until next time, have a great one.